or agenda to prejudge the issue.
Roe versus Wade is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. It was decided in 1973. It has been challenged on a number of occasions, and the Supreme Court has reaffirmed the decision. When a decision is challenged and it is reaffirmed, that strengthens its value.
Roe versus Wade, decided in 1973, is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. It has been reaffirmed, so a good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court, worthy as treatment of precedent like any other.
As a judge, it is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. By it, I mean Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Been reaffirmed many times. Casey is precedent on precedent.
I do not believe that Brett Kavanaugh will overturn.
Precedents are overturned all the time.
They aren't overturned all the time. He views precedent not just as a legal doctrine, but as rooted in our Constitution.
Neil Gorsuch, for whom you voted, don't you think he's probably going to vote to overturn Roe versus Wade if given the chance?
I actually don't.
Roe is not a super precedent because calls for its overruling have never ceased, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
Hello everyone, it's Queen B, and I'm back to you with another video. This video pertains to the domino effects of Roe v. Wade as it pertains to the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. This story pertains to a 13-year-old child having a baby. Again, a 13-year-old child was violated in the worst way at the age of 12 and was forced to have a baby at the age of 13 years old. Before I get into this story and my commentary, I would like to extend my continued support to this child, her family, and her community during this difficult time. So let's dive right in. This article is by Time magazine, in which I will read in part. I will leave in the description below for the full article. It begins with, Ashley just had a baby. In the fall of 2022, Ashley was violated by a stranger in the yard outside her home, her mother states. For weeks, Ashley didn't tell anybody what occurred, not even her own mother. But Regina knew something was wrong. Ashley used to love going outside to make dances for her TikTok, but suddenly she refused to leave her room. When she turned 13 in November of 2023, she wasn't in the mood to celebrate. She just said, "It hurts," Regina remembers. She was crying in her room. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she didn't want to tell me. The signs were obvious only in retrospect. Ashley started feeling sick to her stomach. Regina thought it was related to her diet. At one point, Regina even asked Ashley if she was pregnant, and Ashley said nothing. Regina hadn't yet explained to her daughter how a baby is made because she didn't think Ashley was old enough to understand. They need to be kids, Regina says. She doesn't think Ashley even realized that what happened to her could lead to a pregnancy. On January 11th of this year, Ashley began throwing up so much that Regina took her to the ER. One nurse came in and asked Ashley, "What have you been doing?" Regina recalls that's when she found out Ashley was pregnant. "I broke down." At their second visit, Regina asked if there was a way to terminate Ashley's pregnancy. 7 months earlier, a doctor could have directed Ashley to abortion clinics in Memphis, 90 minutes north, or in Jackson, Mississippi. But today, Ashley lives in the heart of abortion-banned America. In 2018, Republican lawmakers in Mississippi enacted a ban on most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The law was blocked by a federal judge who ruled that it violated the protections guaranteed by Roe v. Wade. The Scoutists felt differently in their June 2022 decision in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization, where SCOTUS overturned the constitutional right to abortion that existed for nearly half a century. Within weeks, Mississippi and every state that borders it banned abortion in almost all circumstances. Regina was informed that the closest abortion provider for Ashley would be in Chicago. At first, Regina thought she and Ashley could drive there, but it's a 9-hour trip and Regina would have to take off work. She'd have to pay for gas, food, and a place to stay for a couple of nights, not to mention the cost of the abortion itself. "I don't have the funds for all of this," she states. Now you will watch this news clip from TheReidout, and I will be back with my commentary.
Exposing the horrors of post-Roe America and its cruelty toward children. According to a Time magazine report, a 13-year-old girl was forced to give birth after getting raped and impregnated by a stranger who attacked her outside her home. Despite the state's so-called exceptions for rape, which require a police report, the girl was unable to get an abortion. Time magazine used Ashley as the pseudonym for the girl who, along with her family, are caught in the teeth of abortion ban America, where the procedure is illegal across most of the South. Ashley's mom, whose pseudonym in the Time piece is Regina, said her daughter used to love going outside to make dance clips for her TikTok account. But suddenly, last fall, she refused to leave her room and stopped speaking. When she turned 13, Ashley wasn't even in the mood to celebrate. She just said to her mother, "It hurts." Despite the disappearance of abortion care in her state after Dobbs, the closest provider, because of the disappearance of abortion care in her state after Dobbs, the closest clinic was in Chicago. That's a 9-hour drive by car, too far and too expensive for Regina and Ashley to make the trip. Regina said she simply didn't have the money or the time off work. Ashley was terrified of going into labor, her doctor recalled. She had questions about pushing and the pain. Her son, nicknamed Peanut, is now a few weeks old. Any day now, his mother, by government mandate, who is young enough to be his big sister, will start 7th grade. Joining me now is Shannon Brewer, Executive Director of Las Cruces Women's Health Organization in New Mexico. She's the former director of Mississippi's Jackson Women's Health Organization, the clinic at the center of the Dobbs case. Thank you, Shannon Brewer. You are the one person that I really wanted to talk to about this case, so thank you for saying yes. Let's talk about this little girl. That's the reality now for little girls all across your former state. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts actually is this is exactly what we have been telling everybody is going to happen. This is going to happen a lot more. It probably has already happened. We're just hearing about this one. This is what we were telling everybody when they were saying that they had these exceptions for rape, and yet there are no doctors or physicians or anyone in the state to see these people when they've been raped. So this is exactly what we expected to happen, and we're going to see this a lot more.
I mean, you can say there were exceptions, but then you're like, well, there needs to be a police report filed in a certain amount of time. I mean, it was 10 weeks later before she told her mom. You know, this is a terrified little girl. I mean, I was terrified before giving birth of the pain, et cetera. This is a child, you know, and these states, and if you look just at the map, to drive to get an abortion, you have to drive through 4, 5, 6 states, drive all the way to Chicago. It's like the Great Migration in order to get an abortion. And a lot of people can't afford to make that trip. How is that impacting where you are now? You are now in a free state, but I'm sure you also have people protesting and violently, sometimes maybe outside of your clinic. So you've got the violence when you get there and the protests and the drive.
Yeah, we definitely have. We still have protesters. But more importantly, what we have is we still have people that are calling who are needing services, and they don't know how to get there. They don't have access. They don't have funds. And, you know, we spend all of our time mostly directing patients on the closest clinic they can go to and different funding places that can help them. But we're having for the last year, this is what we've been doing. We have women calling still from Mississippi, Alabama, everywhere, and these are women who have never left the state before. So when you think of a grown woman who can't even figure out how she's going to get to a clinic or what she's going to do, and then to think of a 13, she was actually 12 when she got pregnant, that little girl. To think of that is just. It does something to me, because for her parents to not have that choice to make and to be forced, for her to be forced to give birth, it's devastating, actually.
In a state where they're giving money that's intended for people who are indigent to Brett Favre instead of to families like hers, right? So they're not even, and it's not a great state when it comes to maternal health care or helping people in need. How will the mifepristone situation affect you in a state like New Mexico if it goes the wrong way? We know that now the Fifth Circuit has sided with Judge Kaczmarek in Texas, restricting in some ways mifepristone. It's still legal. If that goes to, then what?
If that goes to we have a bigger problem, because that's going to affect a lot of women, a lot of these states that are sending pills, like mailing in the mail, the telemedicine is going to affect more states. It's going to affect some of the states that are supposedly safe, as they call them. I truly don't believe that any state is safe. No. Because at any time they can pass something that will wipe that state out. So there is no such thing as a safe state. And with this mifepristone, it's just going to make it more difficult for women. They just keep constantly trying to make it go away, but the problem is not going away. The high mortality rate is not going away. Those things are not going away. It's actually, that's going to make it even higher.
Yeah. And what's also not going away is Republicans' determination to take this horror of Mississippi and make it national with the national abortion ban, because that is what they want, y'all. Don't get it twisted. Shannon Brewer, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, and God bless.
I cannot begin to imagine what this family is currently going through. To having your child being violated in one of the most horrific ways. Your child is becoming withdrawn. You find out what occurs. You're trying to get your child the best health care option only to find out that you don't have the funds in order to getting your child proper health care. Is this what we as Americans have come to, in which we are okay with children having children? Is this what we really want America, in which our children are placed in adult situations in which they are being violated, and on top of that, being forced with adult responsibilities? This was a 12-year-old child. A child having a child? Is this what we as Americans want? It should be noted, the people who live in the Delta are overwhelmingly black. The poverty rate is high. The region is an epicenter of Americans' ongoing black maternal health crisis. Mississippi has the second highest maternal rate in the country. So you mean to tell me that they were willing to sacrifice a child's life because they feel as if this child should be responsible for a life that she did not even ask for? This is a child having a child. And Mississippi is the second highest maternal rate in the country, and we are forcing children to having children. This story is one of many that will continue to make headlines. As previously reported, last year, a 10-year-old child of Ohio had to leave her state in order to getting an abortion. Now you will watch this brief flashback, and I will be back with my final commentary. Interference. Just last year, Ohio denied health access to a 10-year-old child after that child was violated in the worst way and needed access for an abortion. The child had to go to another state, Indiana, in which a doctor took care of that child. But instead, grown adults in Congress and AGs took it upon themselves by gaslighting this child and her family by stating that she was lying about this horrific incident that occurred last year. What more evidence do we need as Americans to understand that when you vote in persons that do not care about you or your children, these are the consequences? How many times are we going to hear these horrific stories and do something about it? And yes, it leads back to white women. Time and time again, you guys have shown that you do not care about your fellow Americans. And when you feel that your rights are being threatened, that's when you want to protest. But every time it is voting season, you have shown up and shown out that you could care less about your fellow Americans. And we have persons who are actively trying to strip away our democracy as we know it. Hillary Rodham Clinton told us from the jump that this would occur, and persons did not listen. Now it has come to pass that Hillary Rodham Clinton was right, and everyone is paying the price for it. Roe v. Wade, Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization was just the beginning. SCOTUS is stripping laws that were made in protecting everyday Americans. And now we are seeing the domino effect in real time. This is not the time to sit on the sidelines. This is not the time to withholding your vote. This is not the time to ignoring the signs around you. Every vote counts on every level, regardless of local, state, and federal, because with each vote, it does have an impact on persons around you and yourself included. And as always, elections have consequences. Elections matter. I thank you for watching. And as always, please be safe out here. And I will see you in the next video.